Hello, I'm going to present today on station rotation as a blended learning strategy. This is an adaptation of a previous PD that I, Sherry Makoviak, ran with Carolyn Heffron. So let's get started. Our LEQ here is specifically about how you can use station rotation to allow for conferring in your social studies classes. So keep that in mind as we move forward. We draw a lot of information in this presentation from Dr. Catlin Tucker. We could call her a blended learning guru. She has written several books about blended learning, and station rotation really is her baby. It is one step above and beyond what you would normally just call station activity. So feel free to visit her website because this is where a lot of these materials came from. I'm going to move you through the what, the why, and the how, but remembering too that we are really trying to keep our focus on how to use conferring with your social studies students. So again, station rotation is not just stations. It is a blended learning strategy. So it uses multiple instructional techniques to communicate content and skills to your students through 3 or 4 activities. I'll talk about that here in just a second. So the thing that makes it different than just straight up stations is that each station is unique in its type. So there is an online station, a teacher-led station. That's the one we're going to talk about with conferring. And there can be 1 or 2 independent or group project offline stations. So for it to be station rotation, each of these components are used and they are connected to each other, but they are non-sequential. So a student can start in any part of the process and still make sense of the concept, topic, or standard. So depending on what it is you're trying to communicate, you're going to utilize the different formats of the stations to attack that concept or standard. And I love this graphic because it gives you an instant snapshot of what each of these stations can look like. And again, you can even see here this offline station could really be 2 stations where one is like a group project and the other one is reading, annotating, or just writing and drafting. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what each of these stations really mean. So the key concept here that can be a little bit difficult, but I love this graphic, is that the students do not go through all of the stations in the same order. And this can really allow for scaffolding and differentiation, especially here with this teacher-led station. So remember, this is our conferring station today. Like you can do these things, remediation, feedback, all that, but this one today is straight up conferring. So you want to place your students in these groups to maximize the amount of time you have with each kid. So you're going to see each kid as they come through this teacher-led station. If you group them intentionally, you're putting the ones that you need to talk to first here in group 1 because they're going to start with you. The next group is the ones you need to see next, where I need to talk to you before you get here to this offline station where you're going to keep doing your drafting. But here I'm going to talk to you before you get there. And this group, group 3, they're the last ones you're going to see. They will have drafted before they get to you. So this is the group that is the least of your concerns, if you think about it that way. So this online station can trip people up sometimes, but this might be a great place for your students to really do some previewing. Maybe it's a dipstick, a toe dip into the next concept. Maybe it's a review. Maybe it's a game like an ed puzzle or quizzes or a Quizlet. Maybe it's just straight up vocabulary practice. But this is the station that they are definitely using your laptop apps. So they're using Schoology, they're using YouTube, they're using Edpuzzle to do the thing that you need them to do to better understand a concept or a skill. This teacher-led station is your conferring station in this scenario. So like I said, as you're grouping students, what are the issues or needs that you need to address? What are the topics or skills that are key to their success on this topic, on this test, on this writing? And how can I see them? And you want to see all of them in this model. You do not have to group them by ability or by what they have or have not, but if you do that, that allows you to then speak to all 4 of them at the same time. And again, this offline station could be divided into 2 stations. You could have a complete independent work station where they are independently extending, writing, thinking, reading, or this could be a group project-based learning area where maybe they're doing those same things, but they're doing them together. Maybe it's a poster, maybe it's a synthesis or an analysis of a topic. But the key is that through this model, you are explicitly working with one group, you are teaching them using an online app at another group, and they are practicing on a 3rd station. So one of the reasons why this is a really effective, high-yield structure is it does all of these things in that one class period. So you can differentiate for students. You can use different modes of learning. It really puts students in the driver's seat. They have to do the work. The engagement is consistent through the duration of the lesson versus like a typical teacher-centered stand and deliver where it's just you doing most of the work. And then here, this is the big payoff, right? So it helps you because you get FaceTime with every student. You are working next to them, not in front of them. It allows you to extend and add to their learning and practice. And really, as far as conferring goes, it is this part right here, this early intervention. Get to them before they get too far, and you can redirect as needed. So a lot of stumbling block points come to this question is, how do I do this? I have so much content to teach. How do I fit this in? So I think one of the best ways to think about it is to look at samples. So on the next slide, I'm going to give you 2 very brief outlines of a typical lesson. Both are examples of good teaching. One is not better than the other. However, one of these lessons really lends itself to becoming a station rotation lesson. The other just doesn't have those components. So as you look here between lesson 1 here on the left and lesson 2 on the right, which one better lends itself? Can you see where a teacher-led conferring station would be? Which one would be the online station? Which one would be an independent or group workstation? So go ahead and pause the video and take a look and decide which one you think it'll be. So as you're looking at these 2 lessons, again, one is not better than the other. They're both fine. But this second one has components that would very clearly lend themselves to 3 different stations. This one does not. The point of the lesson was to get their claims submitted, to reteach claim and claim components. This doesn't really lend itself to being divided up. But if we really look at lesson 2, what would be the conferring part? Well, it would be this part right here, right? Like talking with each student about their claim, evidence, and reasoning. And maybe that's how you divided them up. The ones that don't have a claim start with you. The ones that have a claim but need some help with their evidence would be here, so they rotate to you next. The warm-up, the current event, that could very easily be an online station where they're reading something online and they post to a discussion board on Schoology. The offline station could just be a straight up drafting, or they are talking to each other about their writing, which however you wanted to do that, but it does account for writing here. So again, the message here is that there are some lessons that really do translate very well into a station rotation model, while others just don't. So the challenge is to find the ways to fit them in. As you are stepping forward into this practice, there are just a few things for you to keep in mind with the how. So tried and true practice, length of stations, 7 to 10 minutes is the sweet spot. More or less time creates a whole host of issues. So you want to aim for that 7 to 10 minute window. Along with that would be a minute to rotate to the next station, get settled, get the materials. Speaking of which, how are they going to get those things? Where are the directions and handouts? My best suggestion would be put in folders at the stations themselves so that they do not need a laptop or a device to access them. Who is keeping track of time? Is it a student? Is it a timer? Is it a timer on the smartboard? That would be my suggestion, is something that is highly visible and easy to see. How are they rotating? Clockwise or counterclockwise is the easiest way to go. And then, as we said before, who is in what group? Why are you grouping them together? You do not have to intentionally group students. You can intentionally group students, but that work is going to have to be done prior to class. That is very difficult to do right there on the spot. And then obvious next steps, like what are we doing tomorrow after we're done with the stations? Are we continuing with this same writing? Are we moving back into the content? What is the next move for our students so they understand how what they did today fits into their future learning? So I hope you feel like this very brief jump in allowed you to kind of see how you could set up a station rotation to allow for a conferring practice to occur. And it's worth repeating that it can be done. They do this in their other classes, and you can speak with every student in one class period, which is awesome. I also linked these sources in the Schoology group, so feel free to continue your investigation. Again, you see some Catlin Tucker here. She is so knowledgeable and does address all content areas, not just one and not just one level. Hope it helped.